industry passage 2. And I'll be doing it exactly the way I do under exam conditions. And I will try to slow down a little bit so you can maybe follow how I'm doing what I'm doing exactly. And I'll try to explain what we're doing or what I'm reading about as much as possible. The Hollywood film industry. Okay, the chapter examines this studio and explores how this kind of filmmaking developed during this history. It also focuses on two things which influenced the studio. That is sound and the vertical integration. Okay, so far we are talking about this book that it will talk about the Hollywood and how it developed and what it what affected it. There were two things. Okay. In addition to its historical stuff, it offers clues about the struggles that this studio had. So if we study them, if we examine all those challenges, we can also compare contrast with the modern challenges. So it'll be good, like if we understood the challenges that Hollywood industry had while it was growing. So before I look at the questions, I want to sum it up right into one sentence. Like this whole paragraph is about the book, what it's going to do. It's going to study Hollywood development, Hollywood film studio, and we will learn something from this. That's it. Okay, let's look at the choices now. So the power within each studio, we didn't read about the power of each studio is powerful. So no. Next, the movie industry adapts to innovation. There was nothing about adapting to innovation. So no. Contrast between cinema and other media. We're not really contrasting. That's not the focus of the point, right? Of the paragraph. Don't just, fall into traps of words and themselves. Like we're looking for ideas. Next, the value of studying this Hollywood's golden age, the value of studying we're talking about a book and how it will explore these and that, and we will learn certain things. So this one is looking good. So let's leave a mark. Next, distinguishing, differentiating, yes, themselves from others, how they're different and what they're trying to do to set themselves apart. We didn't read about that. Next, a double attack on film studio. There was no attack, so no. I'm underlining these because this is how I read and analyze the choices, especially when I'm eliminating the wrong choices, okay? So my goal here is not to choose the right answer at first, is to eliminate the wrong options as quickly as possible. And gaining control, becoming the superpower in the industry. There was no such thing like that. Next, the top movies of this. The center of this option is the top movies. We didn't talk about movies at all. So the only option here we have is this one. So let's write that down and eliminate that and keep going. We are going to look at other questions. So we answered question number 14 so far, right? I mark it like that for myself, okay? Like a mental note, or if I'm doing it on paper, I'll definitely mark it like that. Okay, so let's look at true, false, if there's anything. It says jazz singer. We didn't read about jazz or this time. So it seems like I cannot answer any of this yet. So I'm going to skip these. I'm not going to even read. Let's talk about the Hollywood studio. Did we read about it? No more than 2 words. Throughout Hollywood industry was controlled. No, I didn't read about how it was controlled or by whom. So yeah, that's it. Like I cannot answer anything else. So at this point, I think we're done. Yeah, no, definitely no. Okay, now paragraph B. The shift, I might probably need to highlight what I'm reading. So let's do this. Okay, the shift of the industry away from silent films began during this time. So the industry used to produce silent films, okay, at the beginning, but then they moved away from it because earlier we read that there was this sound and it impacted the Hollywood. Okay, so blah, 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 blah film. This was the first to feature synchronized speech, and with it came a period of turmoil for the industry. Okay, so we learn about this film that had speech in it instead of just being silent. And there was a period of turmoil. Turmoil is challenge, okay? So we're talking about something negative now. Let's see. The studios now had proof that talkie films would make them money, but the financial investment this kind of filmmaking would require, from new camera equipment to blah, 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 made it so the financial investment made studios hesitant to invest at first. So that was, I guess, the turmoil. So they knew that making talkie films was better, but it was going to be obviously costly to buy all the equipment. In the end, the power of cinematic sound, so the power of the sound to both movie audiences and the story, persuaded studios that talkies were worth investing. Okay, so they realized that they ought to go into invest. Overall, the use of sound in films was well received. That means people were happy with the sound. But there were still many technical factors to consider. This but is telling us that, well, even if we knew that the talkie movies were better, there were issues. Yeah, like there were things that we needed to consider, like technical factors. Like what are those? Although full integration sound into movies was completed by blah, blah. So, okay, so films started being like with sound completely by this time. It would take somewhat longer for them to regain their stylistic elegance and dexterity. Okay, so you may not know all of these words, but the main idea is that I think it took them a little bit longer to be stylistic or elegant as movies. Okay, so yeah, they had sound, but it wasn't that great right away. The camera now had to be encased in a big blah blah soundproof box. Oh yeah, they're talking about these technical issues they had to consider. You see, in addition, so another challenge, actors struggled having to direct their speech to awkwardly hidden microphones in blah, 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 blah. So the rest part here is talking about the challenges, right? That the challenges the filmmakers kind of had to face. Okay, so yeah, the main idea is kind of here, right? It starts in that second sentence, the challenges they had. Okay, so let's look at the options, or let me close this and see if I can explain this to you. What was the main idea in this paragraph? It was about how after integrating or adding sound to the movies, companies started realizing that it was a great money-making business, but it was not easy. So there were challenges. That's it. That's how I would put it. Now let's look at the questions. The power within. No, it was not about the power. The movie industry adapts to innovation. That looks good. Yeah, they were trying to adapt. So maybe. Let's see. Next, contrast between. We're not contrasting or comparing, so it doesn't make sense. Okay. Distinguishing. No. A double attack. No. Gaining control. They were not gaining any control yet. They were just trying to adapt and make things a little bit better. The top movies, no. So the only option that we have now is the option number 2, right? Okay, then we shall continue. So option 2 is the answer. Let's mark it down. We have 15. Okay, let's look at other options, other questions. Oh, 20. After this movie, okay, the jazz singer came out. All right, after this, other studios immediately began making movies with the sound. Now, before I look back, here's what I do with true, false, not given questions. There are actually a couple of things I do, but one of them is after I read the question carefully, I paraphrase and simplify, like and reorder it. So other films also started like immediately. I think this is kind of important. Immediately, they started making movies like with that sound, and they did that after this happened. So is that true? Did they start doing this immediately? I turned it into a question like that for myself. So that's it. I remember reading this, and I remember the sound part of, yeah, you guys probably remember this too, but did they start it immediately? I feel like, no, they didn't start that immediately. They were hesitant, if you remember. So it's based on this part. Okay, what was the question number actually? 20, right? So I'm going to make a note of that. So, okay. They said, okay, the movie was the first to feature. It had the speech and it came. Oh, right. Studios now had proof that it could make money, but yeah, no, it feels like false, It cannot be true, but it can be false because they did not immediately start doing that. It was not immediately, so I can correct it here. I found synonym for all of it, everything else though, so I can cross these over like that. Movies with synchronized speech. This is how I work with my choices. All right, to be absolutely, sure. Okay. Um, drawbacks to recording. Oh, I think we can answer 21 too. They were drawbacks, challenges to recording movie actors' voices in the early 30s. Now, we read about the 30s, yes, and we read about actors' voices, and they struggled a little bit. There were technical issues, like the camera was big and heavy, or it was awkward, um, or yeah, so it was not easy. Yeah, they were drawbacks to reporting. Yeah, I think it looks like definitely they had challenges. So let's mark it down there. Well, you can go back to be absolutely sure if you want. So in paragraph B, we had so the audience was happy, right, with the movies with sounds, but there were technical issues. So many technical factors, like it took longer for them to become that elegant, blah blah. The cameras were so big, clumsy. Also, actors struggled because they had to direct their speech and hide their microphones here or there, so it was difficult. Yeah, looks right. Okay, so we got this one too. 22. There was intense competition. I don't know about competition, control, no Hollywood studios, controlled by, no. So that is it. So we're done with A and B. So let's move on to paragraph C now. All right, the vertical integration, okay, the vertical integration is the other key component. Oh, if you remember, so this is how the paragraphs are laid out. So the A is rather introduction. It told us that there are two things that affected the Hollywood film industry development. And one was sound, which paragraph B talked about. And paragraph C now is talking about the vertical integration, because there was a second key component or element, remember? So now we're going to talk about that. So it helps really to follow the overall structure of the paragraph instead of just like reading the details, The broader you have this understanding, or the more context you have to follow, to read, the easier it is for you to read, understand what's happening really, especially with big picture questions like headings. So vertical integration is the other key thing, okay, in the rise of that. Got it. The major studios, okay, so studios we're talking about, realized they could increase their profits by handling each stage on a film's life. For oh, there after this punctuation, after the colon, we have these examples of how or stage, what do you mean by each stage? And they're going to list usually like, okay, so that is called like production or distribution or exhibition or blah, 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 blah. This is how. And that is all about how to make a film, okay? So they realized they could like work on each part of making film like that separately. They could make even more money, okay? Then we have 5 studios, the big 5, work to achieve vertical integration through this time, owning vast real estate on which to construct elaborate sets, like where they make films. So they're talking about like how they could make more profit by like doing it separately like that. In addition, so similar idea, these studios set the exact terms of film release dates and patterns. Oh, so these guys were working kind of together, I guess. They had like similar terms and whatever. So blah, 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 blah. Okay, we have like a list of the different names. This is how I actually read. I don't really focus on the details and names like that. Formed this executive exclusive club. Okay, so we're talking about those 5 clubs. Little, little, blah, 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 Universal also made pictures, meaning movies, but each lacked one of the crucial elements of this. Together, these 8 companies operated as a mature oligopoly, essentially running the entire market. Ooh, okay. So this whole paragraph is about vertical integration, yes? Like how they try to make things separately and work together with other studios. Each one was kind of did not have one thing, but together, they rule the whole market. That's it. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's look at the choices now. The power within. It was not about, you see, there's option 1 might look good to you right now, but if you think about it, it's like the power within, but they were powerful together, right? Those 5, 8 studios. So looks good, but maybe not so much. The movie industry, no, this is kind of out actually, so let's eliminate that. Okay, we already chose this for the previous one. The contrast between cinema. We're not comparing contrasting like that. Distinguishing themselves from the rest of the market. No, not really. They were not trying to set themselves apart. They were working together to rule the whole thing. So no, a double attack, no. Gaining control, oh yeah, this looks good, right? Because they were trying to gain control of the industry. Top movies, no, that's it. So our answer is 7 here for paragraph C. Okay, done. Now let's look at other questions. 22 maybe? There was intense competition between actors. I didn't read about it. Studios had control over, nope. Hollywood studio, maybe you could answer this one, yeah. Okay, no more than 2 words. Throughout its age, when I read the questions, I want to read them very carefully. So, okay. Throughout the age, the Hollywood movie industry was controlled by a handful of studios. Yeah, we just read this part, right? They were controlled by a handful, like several, like 5, 8, using a system known as, so here we're looking for the name of a system. They use that, and what? The biggest studios not only made movies, but important, handle their distribution, and then finally show them on their own theaters. Okay, so what kind of a system they use to make movies and like, control everything else? These studios were often run by autocratic bosses, men known as, oh, like this is about the people now. We didn't read that yet. So I think we can answer 24 at this point. Yeah. What was the name they used to make movies? Those who control the industry. Okay. It is 24. Okay, it's from this paragraph, yeah. And you probably already know the answer. Where's that? It was, I think, here. Yeah, work to achieve vertical integration through blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the answer is right here, vertical integration. I just mark it like that, actually, under exam conditions, 24. I don't, copy my answers from this to this text here. But if you're doing computer-based test, you could just right away type it up. Vertical integration. Okay, put it there. Okay, there you go. So I'll be marking it out like that. We're done with this, we're done with that, and we're done with this. So on paper, I'm making sure which questions I've answered and which are left. Like, this is how I would be actually working on, because you see, I'm like going around the questions, and if I'm not sure, I make a note on a piece of paper when I'm doing computer-based test. Okay, but here I can, see, but it's just old habits die hard. Okay, that's it really. So now we need to move on to the next paragraph. So let me just mark it as well and say like 16. Yeah, okay. Paragraph D. During blah, blah, the studios were remarkably consistent. Got it. We're still talking about the studios now. The stable enterprises do in large part why they were so, great like that. Due to long-term management heads. So the people, right? Okay, the infamous movie moguls. So these guys who rule their kingdoms with iron fists. Ooh, okay, so now we're talking about who are those guys who ruled all of it. At blah blah, this guy, the same man ran their studios for decades. Yeah, okay, right? Like long-term management hats. The rise of the studio also hinges on the treatment of stars, how they, okay, so another reason why these studios became so powerful as they were was because of the way they treated their stars, who were constructed and exploited to suit their image and the schedule. Okay, now we're talking about like how they worked with the stars, the actors. Actors were bound up in years of contract to a single studio, and the studio boss generally held all the options. Stars could be loaned out to other companies at any time. Studio bosses could also force bad roles on actors and manipulate every single detail with their Mammoth and its house publicity departments. Some have compared studio system to a factory, and it's useful to remember that studios were out to make money first and art second. Well, this is important, I think, part. Okay, so what we have learned. This part is about now the people who ran these studios and how they worked, how they treated their business actually, right? Like because their goal was to make money and art was like secondary. And they did whatever they wanted to do with the actors. They absolutely had this control over them. They ran the whole business with iron fists, right? They were infamous. It's another good word. Uh, Famous for the negative stuff. Yes. So, okay. So it's, yeah, I think we got this. So let's look at the choices now. The power within. Oh, this one looks good now because they were really powerful in a way, the way they controlled everything, or dictated, like to others what and how. Contrast between cinema and other. We're not comparing, contrasting one cinema with other media forms, so it doesn't make sense. Distinguishing themselves from the rest. They were not trying to stand out. No. A double attack. No, the top movies. We're not talking about the top movies actually at all. No, so the answer is one. Okay. Right. What else we could answer? Oh, yeah, here. There was intense competition between actors. No, remember, we read the word actors, yes, for a contract with leading studios. Now, we know that the leading studios, or all these studios that were powerful, they owned actors and they did whatever they wanted to do with them. But was there any competition among those actors for the roles? That doesn't make sense. Sorry, yeah, this would have to be, what? I don't read that. But, keep in mind, we might change our answer later if we find something better. Okay, what about the next one? Studios had total control over how the actors were perceived. Oh, this one looks really good. Yeah, looks like yes, absolutely. Studios had total control. They exploited them. They exploited every move. They manipulated everything. Yeah, everything really looks good. Like if the perceived by the public, like how the public, other people see the actors. Okay, like public perception. 23. And it was based on right here. How the loaned out companies, studios could be forced, bad roles, manipulate every single thing. Images, yeah, they could manipulate, meaning control every single detail of the star's images with their mammoth in-house publicity departments. There you go. What was the question number there? Question number 22, no, 23. This is 23. Okay. Nice. Done. Yeah, 22. Not given for now. Yep. Okay. Let's see if we can answer these ones. Now, but they handled the distribution and then finally showed them in their own theaters, right? These studios were often run by autocratic bosses, those infamous guys, men known as movie moguls, right? 25 is our answer. There you go. Okay. Right, movie moguls. Could just all right. So bosses, men known as blah blah, who often remained at the head of the organizations for decades, right? Like we read all of this. However, the domination of the industry by the leading audit came to an end. Oh, we didn't read about this part yet. Like you see, because this one is about how this control finally stopped. We didn't read that, so it's going to be probably later. But if you were curious, you could just read it anyways. Came to an end in this time when they were forced to open the market to smaller producers, a process known as blah blah. I have no idea because we didn't read this part yet. So now we need to continue with the next paragraph. So this is also market 17. Okay. Paragraph E. On the other hand, so linking words are important, okay? So we need to follow them because they signal to us like what's coming next. On the other hand, so this was negative, and on the other hand means something positive maybe. Studios also had to cultivate flexibility. Cultivate means grow or develop flexibility in addition to consistent factory output. the studio heads realized that they couldn't make virtually the same film over and over again with the same cast of stars and still expect to keep turning a profit. Oh, well, they had to be a little flexible. They realized they couldn't keep doing the same thing, so had to do something a little different. They also had to create product differentiation. Okay, so I had to do something different. Examining how each production company tried to differentiate themselves, like or itself, has led to loose characterizations of individual studio styles. Now we're talking about like making themselves different, yeah. So this guy tended to put out a lot of all-star productions, while this guy excelled in comedy, and this guy developed a reputation for blah blah. So this forged the musical and a great deal of prestige, while this specialized in horror. So this one is about like how they had to be a little different if they wanted to keep making money. Oh, okay. This was not that difficult. Yeah, it was kind of easy to follow. Okay. The answer is 5. Now it's pretty clear. So remove that. Distinguishing themselves from the rest of the market. They were trying to be different, stand out. Looks great. Okay, that was question number 18. Let's answer other questions. Oh, this was about like the end of the control. I didn't read about the end of control yet. So final paragraph. Oh, we're almost there. Okay, this time the independent movie producers struggling, independent producers and exhibitors finally triumphant in their battle against the big studios' monopolistic behavior. Okay, so if you remember, we had these big giant companies, yeah, like controlling everything, but then we had those independent guys who were trying their hard. They were struggling, though it was not easy, but then they eventually triumphant. That means they won in their battle against these big ones. In the United States versus blah blah federal decree of that year. So this is legal stuff we are talking about. Okay, so like these independent guys fighting the big guys. The studios were ordered to give up. Wow, their theaters in what is commonly referred to as blah blah. That is opening the market to smaller guys. Okay, and this coupled with the advent of television seriously compromised. Oh, it's not a good word. The studio system's influence and profits. Hence, during these years are generally considered bookends to the Hollywood golden age. All right. So this whole paragraph is about how finally the big guys lost their title, their power, because they lost, and the independent guys started making heads. And they were ordered to open up the market to the small guys, and we have the name for this system. It's called blah blah. Okay, that's it. Like this is like the end. Let's see. The top movies. Obviously, the top movies doesn't make sense at all. Like, so this is a distraction option, as you can see. Yeah. So it's out. A contrast between cinema and other media. We're not comparing and contrasting. Doesn't make sense at all. A double attack on the studio power. Oh yeah, this looks good now, right? Doesn't it? Now we need to find the double attack exactly. I know there was one attack, but was it double attack? Let's see, just to be sure, Okay. Oh, it's right here. So we know that the small guys were fighting. So that's the first attack. And the second one is coupled with the advent of television. So the fact that also television like emerged in the 50s, like these two things seriously compromised the big guys' influence and power. So this is how they suffered from double attack. Okay, that makes sense. So this is 19. All right, we finished all the headings and oh yeah, right. So in the 80s, when they were forced to open the market to smaller guys, and this process is known as something 26 teacher, whatever this is. So this is 26. Yeah, 26. Question number 26. And that ends. Okay. All right. That is how we do the whole passage, okay? One paragraph, questions, paragraph, questions, and we'll do the next one. I hope you could follow me and you could understand the parts I explained or how I work with the choices to be absolutely short. And I really enjoyed it, I must say.